step by step on how to grasp the profound lessons in meditations. Imagine this: you're standing on the edge of a battlefield, your enemies advancing steadily, chaos roaring all around you, but instead of panicking, you reach into your armor, pull out a simple journal, and scribble a few words, words not meant for anyone but yourself, words that anchor you, remind you, and give you strength. This was Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, who wrote Meditations. Now ask yourself, could you stand with such composure in the face of life's storms? Could you grasp wisdom that deep? Here's what's fascinating. Meditations is not just a collection of philosophical musings. It's a manual for life, a mirror reflecting the best and worst within us. But how do we go beyond merely reading it? How do we truly live it? Step by step? To start, let's pull back the curtain on what Meditations is. It's not a book written for fame or approval. It's a series of private notes, where Marcus Aurelius wrestled with the same challenges you face: self-doubt, external chaos, fleeting emotions, and the pull of ego. These writings weren't meant to be profound. They were meant to be practical. Step 1. Read not with your eyes but your soul. Here's where most people falter. They pick up Meditations expecting poetic inspiration, and they miss its raw, unvarnished wisdom. When Marcus writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He's not trying to inspire you. He's telling you the hard truth. The first step is to read each sentence as if it's speaking directly to your struggle. What's bothering you right now? Fear of failure? The sting of rejection? Let Marcus answer that, not as an ancient emperor, but as a mentor whispering into your ear. Think about this. When was the last time you truly paused to reflect on the power you hold over your mind? Do you use it, or does it use you? Step 2. Sit with the pain. Marcus constantly reminds us that suffering stems not from events but from our judgments about them. This isn't easy to hear, is it? It feels almost unfair, as though we're being blamed for our own misery. But pause and ask yourself, is it possible that I've been giving events too much power? When you feel anger, disappointment, or fear, don't rush to escape it. Sit with it, dissect it. Ask yourself, why does this bother me? Over time, you'll find that most of your suffering dissolves under the light of understanding. Let me tell you about a friend who applied this lesson. She was devastated by a breakup, drowning in self-pity. One night, she picked up Meditations and read, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." She decided to make her pain the catalyst for self-growth. She sat with the hurt, journaled her feelings, and slowly reframed the experience as a turning point. Her transformation was profound, not because the pain vanished, but because she stopped fighting it. Could you do the same? The next time life hurts, will you run, or will you let it teach you? Step 3. Practice the dichotomy of control. This is the backbone of Stoicism and the heart of Meditations. Marcus teaches that there are two realms, what you can control and what you cannot. You can't control the weather, but you can control whether you carry an umbrella. You can't control someone's opinion of you, but you can control your reaction to it. This might sound simple, but here's the catch. Living by it requires brutal honesty and relentless discipline. Try this exercise for 1 week. Every time you face a frustration, pause and ask yourself, is this within my control? If yes, act decisively. If no, let it go. You'll quickly realize how much energy you've wasted fighting battles that weren't yours to win. Here's a deep question for you. How often do you sacrifice your peace trying to control the uncontrollable? Is it worth it? Step 4. Journal like an emperor. Marcus Aurelius didn't just think about Stoicism, he wrote about it. Daily, writing forces clarity. It slows down your thoughts and turns abstract feelings into tangible insights. Start with a simple question each morning. What's within my control today? End each night with, what did I learn about myself? Don't aim for perfection. Aim for honesty. Your journal isn't a place for vanity. It's a forge for self-mastery. Picture this, 10 years from now. You stumble upon your journal from today. What lessons would you want to leave for your future self? What wisdom could you offer to the person you'll become? Step 5. Embrace mortality. This might be the hardest lesson of all. Marcus constantly reminds himself that life is fleeting. Writing, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. To modern ears, this sounds morbid, but it's liberating. Why? Because when you accept that time is finite, you stop wasting it on trivialities. You stop arguing over petty matters, clinging to material possessions, or procrastinating on your dreams. Here's an exercise for today. Write your own obituary. What would you want it to say? Now compare that to how you're living. Are your priorities aligned with the legacy you hope to leave? Step 6. Serve others. Stoicism isn't a philosophy of isolation. Marcus believed in fulfilling one's role as a citizen of the universe. He reminds us, what is not good for the hive is not good for the bee. True happiness comes not from indulging the self but from contributing to the whole. This doesn't mean grand gestures. Small acts of kindness, listening deeply, lending a hand, sharing wisdom, can ripple out in ways you can't imagine. Think about it. How different would the world be if each of us lived not for ourselves but for the greater good? And what's stopping you from starting right now? The challenge. Before we continue, let me leave you with a challenge. For the next 24 hours, live as if Marcus Aurelius were watching over your shoulder. How would he judge your thoughts, your words, your actions? Would he see a life rooted in wisdom or one swayed by impulse? The answer lies in the choices you make today. Mastering the inner fortress. How Stoicism transforms your mind into an unbreakable force. Picture this, you're surrounded by noise, distractions, and endless demands. Your phone buzzes with notifications. Deadlines loom. Everyone seems to want something from you. And yet, deep inside, there's a place, a fortress, untouched by all the chaos. This fortress is your mind. And Stoicism is the key to fortifying it. Marcus Aurelius called it the citadel. He wrote, "People try to retreat to the countryside, to the beach, to the mountains. You always have the option of retreating into yourself. But how do we build this inner fortress? And more importantly, how do we keep it strong when life attacks?" Let's dive deeper into the meditations and uncover the next steps. Step 7. Guard your gate. Imagine your mind as a castle. At its gate stands a guard. Every thought, every emotion, every piece of information that wants to enter must first pass your inspection. Marcus warns, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Let that sink in. If you allow negativity, fear, and envy to infiltrate your mind, they will stain it. Conversely, if you choose thoughts of gratitude, courage, and wisdom, your mind becomes a sanctuary. Here's a practical exercise. Every time a negative thought arises, stop and question it. Ask, is this thought useful? Does it serve my purpose? If not, let it go. You are the gatekeeper. Choose wisely. But here's a profound question for you. How often do you allow toxic thoughts to wander freely through your mind, as if they own the place? Step 8. Cultivate indifference to external praise and criticism. Marcus reminds us, it never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinions than our own. How often do we shape our actions based on what others might think? Social media likes, peer approval, or even a passing comment can dictate how we feel. But why? These opinions are fleeting, inconsistent, and ultimately beyond our control. The solution lies in cultivating indifference, not apathy, but a deep understanding that your worth isn't tied to external validation. Here's a challenge. For 1 week, post something online or share an idea without checking for reactions. Focus solely on your intention and effort. Observe how it feels to disconnect your sense of self from others' responses. Ask yourself, are you living your life for yourself, or as a performance for an audience that isn't even paying attention? Step 9. Reframe adversity as opportunity. One of the most empowering lessons in meditations is the idea that obstacles aren't barriers, they're pathways. Marcus writes, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Think about that. Every challenge you face contains within it the seed of growth. But this requires a shift in perspective. Next time you face a setback, pause and ask, what can I learn from this? How can this make me stronger? Even failure is a gift, offering insights you wouldn't gain otherwise. This mindset doesn't eliminate adversity, it transforms it. Here's a personal example. A friend of mine lost his job unexpectedly. First, he was devastated, filled with anger and self-doubt. But after reading Meditations, he decided to treat this loss as an opportunity to reinvent himself. He started his own business, something he'd always dreamed of but never pursued. Today, he says losing that job was the best thing that ever happened to him. What about you? What obstacle in your life could become the foundation of your greatest breakthrough? Step 10. Simplify your desires. Marcus lived in a palace, surrounded by luxury, yet he constantly reminded himself of the transient nature of pleasure. He wrote, "Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary?" This isn't about denying joy, it's about focusing on what truly matters. When you strip away unnecessary desires, you free yourself from their grip. You become lighter, more focused, and less prone to dissatisfaction. Here's a practical tip. For 1 month, practice voluntary simplicity. Choose one area of excess, whether it's shopping, eating out, or scrolling through social media, and reduce it to the essentials. Use the time and energy you save to reflect on what genuinely brings you fulfillment. Here's a deep question to consider. Are your desires serving you, or are you serving your desires? Step 11. Practice negative visualization. This Stoic exercise might seem counterintuitive, but it's incredibly powerful. Negative visualization involves imagining the loss of something you value, your health, a relationship, your freedom not to dwell on sorrow, but to deepen your gratitude for what you have. Marcus frequently reminded himself that life is fragile and unpredictable, not as a source of fear, but as a call to cherish the present moment. Try this before you go to bed tonight. Imagine waking up tomorrow without one thing you take for granted, a loved one, your job, or even the ability to walk. Sit with that thought. Then, return to the present and notice how your appreciation shifts. Ask yourself, if you lost everything tomorrow, would you regret not savoring it today? Step 12. Act with purpose. Marcus believed every action should align with your higher values. He asked, at every moment, keep a sturdy mind on the task at hand. As a Roman and a man, doing it with strict and simple dignity. This means no half-hearted efforts, no distractions, no excuses. Each day is an opportunity to live with intention. Here's an exercise each morning. Write down 3 things you want to accomplish, not based on obligation, but on what truly matters to you. Then, as you complete each task, remind yourself why it's important. This simple practice transforms mundane routines into meaningful rituals. A thought to ponder. How many of your daily actions are driven by purpose, and how many are just habits on autopilot? Step 13. Cultivate a cosmic perspective. Marcus often reflected on the vastness of the universe, writing, "What we do now echoes in eternity." This isn't about feeling insignificant, it's about gaining perspective. When you zoom out and see your life as part of a much larger whole, your worries shrink. You realize that petty conflicts and fleeting anxieties are just specks in the grand scheme of things. The next time you feel overwhelmed, step outside and look at the stars. Let their silence remind you of how vast and interconnected life is. You're not alone in your struggles. You're part of something infinitely greater. A final question for this part. What legacy are you building, not just for yourself, but for the world that will follow you? From reading to living, how Stoicism makes you unstoppable in the real world. Imagine for a moment that you've mastered the art of living, not merely existing, but truly living each action aligned with your values, each thought grounded in wisdom, and every challenge met with calm resilience. This is the promise of Stoicism, and Marcus Aurelius shows us the way. But here's the catch: wisdom, no matter how profound, is worthless unless applied. This final part focuses on bridging the gap between knowledge and practice, turning the lessons of meditations into a way of life. Step 14. Start small. Aim big. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to overhaul their entire mindset overnight. Marcus didn't become a Stoic master in a single day. He cultivated it moment by moment. Begin with small, deliberate changes, instead of reacting with frustration when you're cut off in traffic. Practice patience. Instead of complaining about a problem at work, take proactive steps to solve it. Each small victory builds momentum. Over time, these habits compound, transforming you into a person who naturally embodies Stoic principles. Here's a question to reflect on. What's one small change you can make today that aligns with the Stoic path? Step 15. Treat every interaction as a test of character. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that he couldn't control how others behaved, only how he responded. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Harsh? Maybe. But realistic? Absolutely." Here's the insight. Instead of being frustrated by difficult people, view them as opportunities to strengthen your character. Patience isn't developed in isolation. It's forged in the fires of conflict. Kindness isn't tested by friends, but by critics. The next time someone irritates you, pause and ask, how can I respond in a way that reflects my best self? Step 16. Make adversity your ally. Life will knock you down. That's a guarantee. But as Marcus writes, a blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. Adversity doesn't define you, it reveals you. When things go wrong, don't ask, why me? Instead, ask, what now? Use challenges as fuel to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Here's a story for you. A young athlete I know tore his ACL during a crucial game. His dreams of a professional career seemed shattered. But instead of wallowing, he immersed himself in rehabilitation and mental training. Today, he's not only back on the field but also mentoring others on resilience. His injury became the foundation of his strength. So let me ask you, what if your greatest setback was actually your greatest gift in disguise? Step 17. Embrace the present fully. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the fleeting nature of time, writing, "Confine yourself to the present. The past is unchangeable, and the future is uncertain. Yet how much of your energy is spent regretting or worrying? The Stoic path is to anchor yourself in the here and now, where life truly happens." Here's a practical exercise. Whenever you catch your mind drifting to the past or future, take 3 deep breaths and focus on what you're doing right now. Feel the sensations, notice the details, and immerse yourself in the moment. Here's a deep question for you. If today were your last day, how would you live it differently? Step 18. Practice self-compassion. Stoicism isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Marcus himself often stumbled, and he knew it. That's why he wrote, "When you fail, return to the path." There's no shame in this. Too often, we're our own harshest critics, expecting flawlessness and berating ourselves when we fall short. Instead, practice self-compassion. Recognize your efforts, forgive your mistakes, and recommit to your values. Growth is a journey, not a destination. Here's a challenge. Write a letter to yourself, as if you were encouraging a dear friend. What would you say to uplift and inspire yourself? Step 19. Live for something bigger. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of his role in the larger cosmos. He wrote, "What we do now echoes in eternity." This isn't just about leaving a legacy, it's about living a life of purpose. When you align your actions with something greater than yourself, you find meaning even in the mundane. Ask yourself what cause, value, or purpose inspires you. How can you dedicate your life to it, even in small ways? Step 20. Reflect and refine daily. The Stoic life isn't static, it's dynamic. Marcus Aurelius didn't just live by his principles. He revisited them daily, questioning his actions and refining his character. Every evening, take a few minutes to reflect. Ask yourself, did I live today according to my values? Where did I fall short? How can I do better tomorrow? This practice isn't about guilt, it's about growth. Each day is a chance to become a better version of yourself. The final takeaway: the journey to grasping meditations isn't about becoming someone else. It's about uncovering who you truly are. Marcus Aurelius wrote not to preach, but to remind himself and us that wisdom, strength, and peace are already within. The challenge is to live it. So I leave you with this: as you move forward, remember that every thought you think, every word you speak, and every action you take is a step toward your destiny. Make those steps count. What will you do today to build the life you've always known you're capable of living?